I married James on a Wednesday afternoon in June 1985, 3 weeks after we met at a bookstore in Boston. I was 22 years old, fresh out of college, working as a substitute teacher and wondering what I was going to do with my English degree. He was 25, a graduate student in architecture, building a life I wanted to be part of before I even understood what that life would look like. Everyone told us we were crazy. My mother cried. My father refused to come to the courthouse. My best friend Rachel said, "You don't even know him. What if he's a serial killer or something?" His parents didn't show up either. They were traditional Irish Catholics who didn't approve of a courthouse wedding, or of me, the Protestant girl their son had known for less than a month. But we didn't care. We were in love. Desperately, completely, irrationally in love in the way you can only be when you're young and stupid and convinced you've found the one person in the world who truly understands you. We got married with 2 witnesses we'd pulled in from the courthouse hallway, a janitor and a woman waiting for her own court date. We said our vows, kissed, and walked out into the June sunshine as husband and wife, convinced we'd proven everyone wrong. Next month, we'll celebrate our 40th wedding anniversary. 4 decades of marriage. Most people would say that means we did prove them wrong, that our impulsive decision was actually right, that we beat the odds. But sitting here now, at 62 years old, looking at James across the dinner table, 71 years old, retired, comfortable, familiar, I finally understand what everyone was trying to tell us. We didn't know each other. And in many ways, we still don't. Let me tell you about the day we met. It was May 15, 1985. I was in the Brattle bookshop in Boston, browsing the poetry section, when a book fell from the shelf above me. It would have hit me in the head if someone hadn't caught it. I looked up, and there was James. He was tall, dark-haired, with green eyes and a crooked smile. He handed me the book Pablo Neruda's 20 Love Poems and a Song of Despair and said, "Careful. Poetry can be dangerous." It was a corny line. Looking back, it was such a corny line. But at 22, I thought it was the most romantic thing anyone had ever said to me. We talked for 3 hours in that bookstore. About poetry, about dreams, about our fears and hopes and the lives we wanted to build. He told me he was going to design buildings that made people feel something. I told him I was going to teach kids to love literature. We talked like we'd known each other forever, like we were 2 parts of the same person finally finding each other. When the bookstore closed, we went to a coffee shop and talked for 3 more hours. Then we walked around Boston until 2 a.m., still talking, never running out of things to say. He kissed me on the Cambridge Bridge, with the city lights reflecting on the Charles River. It felt like a movie. It felt like fate. We saw each other every single day after that. Morning coffee, lunch when we could manage it, dinner, long walks, sitting up until dawn just talking. 3 weeks of the most intense, concentrated romance I'd ever experienced. And then he asked me to marry him. We were in his tiny studio apartment in Cambridge, lying in bed after making love. He rolled over, looked at me with those green eyes, and said, "Marry me." I laughed. I thought he was joking. We've known each other for 3 weeks. I don't care. I know everything I need to know. You're it for me. I want to spend my life with you. James, that's insane. Maybe. But I've never been more sure of anything. He took my hand. Marry me, Claire. Let's not waste time being sensible. Let's just be happy. I should have said no. I should have told him we needed to date longer, live together first, make sure this feeling was real and not just infatuation. But I was 22, and I was in love, and the idea of being sensible seemed like settling. Like admitting that the magic wasn't real. So I said yes. We got married 3 days later. No engagement, no planning, just a dash to the courthouse and a $50 ring from a pawn shop. We moved into his studio apartment together, 2 people who barely knew each other suddenly sharing a life. The first year was hard. Harder than I ever let on to anyone. James had habits I hadn't known about. He was messy, leaving clothes everywhere, dishes in the sink for days. He snored. He got grumpy if he didn't eat breakfast. He had a temper, not violent, never violent, but when he was stressed, he'd snap at me over nothing, then apologize an hour later. And I had my own issues. I was too neat, too controlling, too anxious about money. I needed plans and schedules. I couldn't handle chaos. When things got messy literally or figuratively, I shut down. We fought. God, we fought. About stupid things, whose turn it was to do the dishes, why he'd forgotten to call when he'd be late, why I'd organized his desk without asking. And about bigger things: money, his relationship with his parents, my career, whether we wanted kids and when. But we also laughed. We made up after every fight. We'd end up in bed, or crying in each other's arms, or both, and we'd promise to do better. To try harder. To remember why we fell in love. And we did love each other. I need you to understand that. Through all the fights and frustrations, we genuinely loved each other. But loving someone and knowing them are two different things. James got his master's degree and took a job at an architecture firm in Hartford, Connecticut. We moved, left Boston and our friends and everything familiar. I found work teaching high school English. We bought a small house with a mortgage that terrified me and excited him. We were building a life. But I kept discovering new things about him, things I would have known if we'd dated longer before getting married. Like how he got depressed sometimes. Deep, dark depressions that would last for weeks, where he'd barely speak, barely eat, just go to work and come home and sit in front of the TV in silence. I didn't know how to help him. I didn't know if I was supposed to help or give him space or what. He wouldn't talk about it. Or how he'd sometimes disappear. Not physically, he'd be right there in the house, but mentally. Emotionally. He'd go somewhere inside himself I couldn't reach, and I'd be left feeling like I was married to a stranger. And he discovered things about me too. Like how I catastrophized everything, turning minor problems into world-ending crises in my head. How I needed constant reassurance that he still loved me, that we were okay, that I hadn't done something wrong. How I could hold grudges over tiny slights for weeks, bringing them up in unrelated arguments. We went to couples therapy when I was 26 and he was 29. The therapist asked us, "Do you actually like each other?" The question surprised us. Of course we liked each other. We loved each other. But when we really thought about it, did we? Or did we love the idea of each other? The people we'd thought we were in those first 3 weeks? The therapist helped. We learned to communicate better, to fight fair, to understand each other's triggers and needs. We got better at being married. But we never became the couple from the bookstore. The two people who stayed up all night talking, who never ran out of things to say, who felt like two halves of one soul. Those people were gone. Maybe they'd never really existed. We had our first child when I was 28, a daughter, Emily. Suddenly we were parents, and whatever issues we had in our marriage had to take a back seat to diapers and feedings and the overwhelming reality of being responsible for another human life. Emily was beautiful. Perfect. I loved her more than I thought it was possible to love anything. And I thought having her would bring James and me closer, would give us common purpose, would fix whatever was broken between us. Instead, it highlighted all our differences. James was a permissive parent. He let Emily do whatever she wanted, couldn't say no to her. I was strict, wanted structure and rules. We fought about parenting constantly. But we made it work. We compromised. We figured it out. Emily grew up healthy and happy, somehow thriving despite having two parents who were still figuring out how to be married. 3 years later, we had our son, Michael. And the same pattern repeated: brief hope that this child would solve our problems, followed by the reality that children don't fix marriages, they just add complexity to them. But here's the thing, we never considered divorce. Not seriously. Even in our worst fights, even when I'd lie in bed next to James and feel like I was sleeping next to a stranger, even when I suspected he felt the same way about me, we never talked about ending it. Maybe it was stubbornness. We'd made this impulsive decision to get married after 3 weeks, and we were determined to prove everyone wrong. Divorce would mean admitting they'd been right all along. Or maybe it was cowardice. Starting over, alone, in our 30s or 40s, seemed harder than just staying in a marriage that was fine. Not great, not terrible, just fine. Or maybe, underneath everything else, we really did love each other. Just not in the way we thought we would. Not in the way movies and songs and romance novels told us love should look. The years passed. Emily and Michael grew up. James made partner at his firm. I became department head at my school. We renovated the house, took vacations, attended parent-teacher conferences and soccer games and dance recitals. We had date nights where we'd go to dinner and struggle to find things to talk about beyond the kids and work. We had sex that was comfortable but not passionate. We had a life. A good life, objectively. stable, secure, respectable. But I kept wondering, what if? What if we'd dated longer before getting married? What if I actually really knew him before committing my life to his? Would we be happier? Would I feel less lonely in my own marriage? Because I was lonely. Even surrounded by family, even lying next to my husband every night, I was fundamentally lonely. I think he was too. Emily left for college when I was 46. Michael followed 2 years later. Suddenly, James and I were alone in the house together, empty nesters. Without the buffer of children to distract us from each other. That first year after Michael left was the hardest of our marriage. We'd circle each other in the house, polite but distant. We'd eat dinner together and run out of conversation after 10 minutes. We'd go to bed at different times, wake up at different times, live parallel lives under the same roof. I kept thinking, is this it? Is this what we have to look forward to for the next 30 years? Growing old next to someone I don't really know, who doesn't really know me. Rachel, my best friend from college, the one who'd warned me about marrying James, got divorced around that time. She'd been married for 22 years, had 3 kids, seemed happy. Then one day she called me and said, I can't do it anymore. I don't even like him. I'm not sure I ever did. She left her husband, moved into an apartment, started dating again at 50. She seemed terrified and liberated in equal measure. I thought about doing the same thing. I fantasized about it, honestly. About starting over, finding someone new, someone I'd take my time getting to know before making any commitments. Or just being alone, discovering who I was outside of being James's wife. But I didn't do it. I don't know why. Inertia, maybe. Fear. The fact that leaving seemed like it would require more energy than I had. Or maybe because despite everything, I still loved him. In some way. Some version of love that wasn't romantic or passionate but was real nonetheless. Then something happened that changed everything. James had a heart attack. He was 63, seemed healthy, worked out regularly. But one morning he collapsed in the backyard while gardening. I called 911, rode with him in the ambulance, watched them shock his heart back into rhythm in the ER. He survived. Full recovery, the doctors said. But for a few hours, I thought I was going to lose him. And sitting in that hospital waiting room, I realized something, I didn't want to lose him. Not because of our history, not because of the kids, not because of convenience or fear or stubbornness. But because he was mine. This flawed, complicated, sometimes infuriating man was mine, and I was his, and that meant something even if I couldn't always articulate what. When he woke up after surgery, groggy and confused, the first thing he said was, "Claire. You're here." "Of course I'm here," I said. "Where else would I be?" "I don't know." I thought. "I've been a shitty husband. I wouldn't blame you if you'd finally had enough." I took his hand. "You haven't been shitty. You've been human. We both have." He started crying. James, who never cried, who prided himself on being stoic and strong, broke down in that hospital bed. "I don't know you," he said. "We've been married for 37 years and I don't know your favorite color or what you're afraid of or what you dream about at night. How is that possible?" "I don't know you either," I admitted. "Not really. Not the way I thought I would when we got married." "We fucked up," he said. "We got married too fast, before we knew each other, and then we spent 40 years being too busy or too scared to actually learn." "Yeah," I agreed. "We did." We were quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Is it too late to learn each other?" "Yeah." I thought about it. We were in our 60s. We'd been married most of our adult lives. We had patterns and habits and ways of being that were deeply entrenched. Could we really change now? Could we really start over, in a sense, and actually get to know each other? "I don't know," I said honestly. "But maybe we could try." So that's what we've been doing for the past 3 years. Trying. We started with the basics. I learned his favorite color, green, like his eyes, but a specific shade, moss green, he called it, like the moss that grew on the oak tree in his childhood backyard. He learned mine, not blue like he'd assumed, but yellow, the color of sunlight through curtains on a lazy morning. We told each other our fears. He's afraid of becoming his father, cold, distant, dying alone and unmourned. I'm afraid of being forgotten, of living a life that doesn't matter, of dying without having really lived. We talked about our dreams. Not the ones we had at 22, but the ones we have now, at our age. He wants to design one more building, something that will outlast him, that people will point to and say James built that. I want to write a book, something true and honest, even if no one ever reads it. We started weekly date nights where we ask each other questions. Deep ones, silly ones, everything in between. We use those couples question cards you can buy on Amazon, and we answer them honestly, even when it's uncomfortable. What's your biggest regret about our marriage? Have you ever thought about leaving me? What do you wish I knew about you? What do you need from me that you're not getting? Some of the answers hurt. Some of them surprised me. But all of them brought us closer. We're learning each other, finally. 40 years late, but learning nonetheless. And here's what I've discovered, I was wrong about what love is. At 22, I thought love was passion and intensity and never running out of things to say. I thought it was feeling like you'd found your other half, your soulmate, the one person in the world meant for you. But that's not love. That's infatuation. That's the honeymoon phase. That's the feeling you get when you don't really know someone yet, when they're still a projection of your hopes rather than a real, flawed human being. Real love is what happens after that fades. It's choosing to stay even when you realize you married a stranger. It's learning who that stranger actually is, year after year, piece by piece. It's accepting their flaws and letting them accept yours. It's building a life together even when it's hard, even when you're lonely, even when you wonder if you made a mistake. Real love is what James and I have now, at 62 and 71. It's not romantic. It's not passionate. Some days it's not even particularly affectionate. But it's real. It's earned. It's built on 4 decades of choosing each other, even when we didn't really know who we were choosing. Everyone was right. We were crazy to get married after 3 weeks. We didn't know each other. We jumped into something we weren't prepared for, and we've spent 40 years dealing with the consequences of that impulsive decision. But they were also wrong. Because somehow, against all odds, we made it. Not because our love was strong enough from the beginning, but because we were stubborn enough to keep trying even when it wasn't. Next month, we're renewing our vows. Not in a courthouse with reluctant witnesses, but in our backyard, with our children and grandchildren there. With Rachel, who's remarried now and genuinely happy. With James's brother, who we've grown closer to over the years. With friends we've made. Colleagues, neighbors, all the people who've been part of our life together. And this time, when we say our vows, we'll actually know who we're promising ourselves to. We'll know each other's fears and dreams and favorite colors and the specific ways we annoy each other. We'll know that marriage is hard and that we're going to keep messing up and that some days we won't even like each other very much. But we'll also know that we're going to stay. That we're going to keep trying. That we're going to keep learning each other until the day one of us dies. That's what 40 years of marriage has taught me. Love isn't finding your perfect match. It's choosing someone and then spending your life figuring out who you chose. Would I do it again? Would I marry James after knowing him for 3 weeks if I could go back to 1985? Honestly? Probably not. If I knew then what I know now how hard it would be, how lonely I'd feel sometimes, how many years we'd spend as strangers living in the same house, I'd probably listen to everyone who said we were crazy. But I also wouldn't trade what we have now. This hard-won understanding, this late-blooming intimacy, this love that's real because it survived everything it shouldn't have. So to anyone reading this who's thinking about making the same impulsive decision we did, don't. Take your time. Get to know the person. Make sure you're choosing reality and not fantasy. But also know that even if you do mess up, even if you do marry a stranger, even if you spent decades wondering if you made a mistake, it's not hopeless. You can still learn each other. You can still build something real. It just takes 40 years. Last night, James and I were sitting on our porch, watching the sunset. He took my hand and said, "Tell me something I don't know about you." I thought about it. After 3 years of asking each other questions, after 40 years of marriage, what could I possibly tell him that he didn't know? Then I said, when we first got married, I used to lie awake at night terrified that I'd made a mistake. That I'd married the wrong person. That I'd ruined my life. He was quiet for a moment. Then, me too. Really? Yeah. For years, honestly. I'd look at you sleeping next to me and think, I don't know this person. How did I end up here? When did it stop? He thought about it. I don't know if it ever fully stopped. But it got quieter. And now? He squeezed my hand. Now I look at you and I think, I don't fully know this person. But I'm glad I ended up here anyway. It's not romantic. It's not the kind of thing they put in wedding vows or anniversary cards. But it's honest. And after 40 years of marriage, I'll take honest over romantic any day. Next month, we'll stand in our backyard and renew our vows. We'll promise to love and cherish each other, in sickness and health, till death do us part. And this time, we'll actually know what we're promising. This time, it'll mean something.